Hey, what's up? This is Brian. Welcome to Space Couch. Let me just do a little adjusterooski here on whatchamacallit, the feed, because we sometimes, you run into problems in space, and people run out of oxygen, and then it's just a problem, and we don't have time for that in space. All's looking great. There's a space monster. You're not on the screen yet. Don't worry about it. That was a tribble. We get those here in space. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest tonight. Welcome to this special weekend edition of Space Weeknight. I meant to say. We're trying it out in headphones because there's some reverb on the podcast. I could not be more excited. We're gonna have a great episode. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the couch, Craig of Home. What is up, buddy? Hey, thank you for welcome to space.
It's really nice to see you in space, Brian.
Yeah. I hang out here in the cosmic void quite a bit. I find it's relaxing, and then I started doing a show, and every second costs billions of dollars to beam this back to UN terra firma, but it's worth it because
I appreciate you hanging out with us humans every once in a while.
Well, and we can clue the audience into this. Even though I'm in space, I do have some of the trappings of home. I've just scalded my body in hot coffee, but so I had to do a little last minute wardrobe change. But we keep alternate spacesuits on hand. That's all besides the point, because we have with us from Victoria, Craig of many projects, but tonight we're going to focus a little bit on OHM. Real quick, OHM with the umlaut O or OHM electronic?
Now OHM electronic.
OHM electronic.
Yeah, that is we've completely transitioned to that. That is our name from forever after. So, when we first went to the name OHM, I think there was a couple of other entities that we found, but it didn't really seem like a big deal to have a couple of other groups or entities using the same. But, once we actually did an album release, or coming up to an album release, we added the little omelet thing, that would make it more distinct. It actually just made it harder to find. because North Americans don't use that.
Right.
So when I had originally registered all of the domains for Facebook and Instagram and all that shit, the only thing that was available at the time was OHM electronic, and so all of our domains already had that as a name, and so Chris and I decided let's try this out. It can't be any worse for wear. And already, it's it's just easier to track our work because the name is that much more distinct.
Dope. Okay, so I wanted to not refer to you as the wrong thing on my OHM electronic.
Or you could say the artist formerly referred to.
You'll be that symbol. Let me put a pin in that. I want to say what's up to Dan from Vein Collector is on. Shane, Master of Pill Brigade is also here. It's already star-studded. This is going to be awesome. Speaking of stars, we're in space. And the stars will align this Friday because OHM has a new album out.
Yes.
I'm super excited about it. Love that Uppercut single. Tell us about this new album, man.
I'm really excited about this. Chris and I, when we finished the last album, we already knew that we wanted the next iteration was going to be something a little bit heavier, and just and a bunch the next album just being a bunch of takeaways from the first album. We like this, we like that. No, let's do more of this, or let's do that. the first album basically being kind of a, here's what we could possibly do.
Okay.
And so now this album is like, okay, this is what we can do.
Oh, okay. This is like your Pikachu has evolved kind of a thing. Like
It certainly has a lot. One thing I wanted to really kind of push for was uh, stronger songs with bigger, better hooks,
okay.
but doing it in context of of sort of a synth punk electro
Mm.
industrial kind of delivery. Um, and part of that too is by changing the vocal delivery
Okay.
from what we did before. Um, the first album was trying a little bit of this and that, whereas the stuff on this album is a lot more direct.
Interesting. So is it now for the audience? This album is with Chris Peterson. Super
Yep.
exciting. That's your buddy.
Yep.
Unit 187, Stiff Valentine, small band called Frontline Assembly. Um,
Decree, Will.
Brian Fleming says that we should play a show together in Victoria. We did once, and it was awesome. We'll get to that. Big ups to SHH Wine. So let me circle back to the new album. What describe the vocal style on it then? Now I'm super intrigued.
Well,
Is that you or Chris? Actually, I'm sorry.
it's all me.
Okay.
So the first the first album was more of a because we didn't initially know who was going to do the vocals
Right.
for the first OHM album. Originally, we were actually looking at just having a variety of different guest vocalists. And when we were developing those tracks, I did a couple of scratch tracks for Chris. I'm like, okay, well, this is what the vocal, should sort of sound like, right? And to which he replies, he's like, "Oh, you can sing." And so it was like drawing the short straw. Well, if we can keep this in house, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I I've
I'm
always
sorry,
been
Brian. Sorry,
uh,
he was at that show. I fucked up. But
yeah.
okay, so you can sing, and you got laden with this vocal duty.
Well, it's funny because when I started doing, say, Landscape Body Machine, way back when, about 25 some odd years ago, I couldn't hear my own voice
Mm.
being applied to this kind of music, so I just didn't do it,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of funny, and so here was an opportunity where Chris kind of wasn't gonna Chris wasn't gonna let me off the hook so easily, and he's like, okay, well, what can you do, right? And try this and try that and stuff, and so we did a lot of experimentation, and once it was done, it was like, okay, that's great, and I just turned to him and said, I think I can do something bigger and better.
Awesome.
and
Oh.
and so this has all been about again, just exploring the vocal as a new tool for the band.
Oh, super exciting. Because hey, so oh, Ryan from White Cube is in the house. So speaking of Landscape Body Machine, we had the pleasure of playing together in Victoria a couple of years ago. That was
That's,
great. That was really great. That's like one of my favorite shows.
that was a
And,
riot.
and Landscape, while hilarious and at times, periodically, ancient dance floor times, and out in space at the time, pardon the pun, at times, does explore a lot, and it sounds like Ohm might be more of like a street fight or even dance oriented. That's just me theorizing. Like, how would you say that this release differs from musically? I know we talked about sort of mechanically, but
Right.
emotionally, if you like, where do you put this in between Landscape Body Machine, Ohm, or even the noise unit stuff?
Right. Well, I think with the landscape stuff, you know, I really the day that I started doing that was, I remember it was a day in 1992, and I remember it very distinctly because I had completely become utterly fed up with all of my favorite electronic bands picking up guitar. I was like, "Fuck all you guys!"
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so
Right.
and that was, and not 2 days later, a friend of mine, Ryan Big, had this. He said, I've got this tape. I have to play you this tape.
Yeah.
And gave me a copy of the tape that became No Cable.
Oh,
And
nice.
and so that was kind of the genesis of that. I was like, okay, I'm going to make something that is unabashedly electronic, and make it as hard and as beautiful as possible, without any guitars, and I guess in a funny way, this album is no different. Where I've used some instruments. For example, I have a Novation Ultra Nova right over here, that I've used on quite a few of the tracks for the really ballsy driving sort of guitar-esque synths.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Quick shout out to Nevada Hardware is in the house, and also White Cube Science Fiction's here too. Awesome. So you're using. Is the new Ohm disc guitar free? Is it all synthetic?
Is it all?
Is it all synthetic? Is it all synth?
Yeah, entirely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Dig it. Dig it.
That's kind of a thing that Chris and I decided on early on, is that any instrumentation that we are going to do, we're still going to conceive of it electronically.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of Everything Is Gone, for example, I was purposely sitting down going, just how overdriven a sound.
It's fun.
Nova, right? How gritty, how to the wall, and that's I mean, I think people would probably laugh to see, really how little gear Chris and I do actually use. I mean, I really I really have two synths that I use.
That's awesome.
And Chris has a Dofer A100. And I think really between these three synths, I mean that's really about it.
That's so cool. See,
well, I when I buy an instrument, I don't I'm a dad, so I mean, I have a lot of money.
Well, yes. Not only that,
something, it has to be I look at something as like, okay, am I going to get 10 years out of this?
Right.
Kind of thing, because I have to.
And not only the money aspect, like crack would be a cheaper addiction. I see like a lot of people starting out going, okay, I need all the shit, or you fall into the trap of, okay, as soon as I get this piece of gear, then my band will start, and you don't need Ohm was about to drop a bomb album. They had 3 synthesizers. I went over to Iris. Like I used to live down the street from Andy from Iris, and I went over to his place expecting the doors of Valhalla to open and synth pop angels to fly out. And it was a laptop and like a 1 octave little Oxygen MIDI controller, and I was like, "That's it."
Absolutely. I mean, I wanted a synthesizer when I was in middle school.
Yeah.
It's like this thing that I lusted after, day after day after day, and when I sat down for like a year plotting with paper route money,
oh, paper route money. Oh,
right. And because I'm like I got to land this. This has to be just the right thing. I ended up settling on an Ensoniq EPS because it was a synth and a sampler, and I was like, oh my god.
Right.
It's got 4 megs of memory.
Oh man, slow down, Rockefeller.
So but I mean these, and those choices though, they kind of shape what you make and who you are.
Isn't that crazy? Just like
you can either let yourself be run over by the bus, or you can drive it.
Oh,
right?
I love it. I love it.
I chose instruments that could make as much as I could as possible without, going into a music studio because really,
Right.
at that point, that was kind of the only option. Home thing was like Tascams and
Right.
Apis and shit like that.
It's just drilling down on it. I bet you would, like with synthesizer that day, you would find like a little LCD menu. Like 2 years into owning it, that you never knew was there. You're like, I can control that. Like,
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I mean, I can't deep dive into synths like I used to when I was
okay,
younger, but I mean, I can still pick up my Ensoniq TS10.
nice.
That I did the whole first LBM album on, by the way.
LBM.
That was why I bought it, is because it had this fabulous 16-track sequencer on board as a workstation, which was kind of unheard of. And I'm like, oh, that.
Awesome.
And so the whole, I mean, all of structure is just a stereo pair out of the TS10 onto DAT and then mask.
Nice, man. Nice.
But again, right? You take what you got and you make it.
Well, I mean, if they could land on right, like I mean, they landed on the moon with like a matchbox and a light bulb in the '60s or whatever.
I was gonna make electronic music because I absolutely fucking had to, or I was gonna jump off a cliff or something.
Like I remember getting my Yamaha QY10, and it was like shedding weights, like just okay, this is what it is. Like,
right?
I mean, because like I knew it was something weird, but like I'm too clumsy to be a skateboarder. And like it had to be like kind of anti-authoritarian, but I'm not cool enough to be punk rock. And it's got to be fucking nerdy. But okay, oh god, thank Yamaha for making like.
You have those things that pull you in.
Yeah.
Right. Like yeah. I remember Howard Jones. I think was my first introduction to synths, and it was like, oh, cool. One guy can do that stuff.
Yes.
Cool. As long as you can play. Because I mean, I wasn't even thinking about sequencers or anything. I'm looking at them like, okay, so that's what. Okay, I have to do that.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I
got to do the hair?
But I'm classically trained. I can do that.
Oh, you are classically trained. Cool.
But it was Depeche Mode that it was like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
I have to buy a synthesizer. What is it?
Shout out time. Syncom is in the house. What's up, Aaron? Big Time Kill in the house. And Victoria's own Steven Saunders. What's going on, man?
I'm Steve. You can stay for a little while.
I wanna circle back to Ohm because I'm pumped. I do a fair amount of collaborations myself, so I'm really fascinated in the actual process. Do you and Chris like bounce out loops and send those back and forth, or do you get down in the studio together?
We, it's really funny. We do a lot of back and forth because I'm in Victoria and he's in Vancouver, and we've sort of, we kind of have a little bit of a pattern. Like I usually try to build a little bit of something to hand to him first, and then we start ping ponging at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But really, the real magic is when we get together in the same room. We have these ridiculously productive weekends when we get together, where we'll do like 4 songs in a weekend, like just
that's awesome.
And it's really on the new album, actually, Disarmed. Kind of came together like that. Chris dialed up a nice little patch on his Dofer, and I just bounced out this melody, and we were like, oh, okay. And
dude,
we had a song in an hour.
Isn't right? That the best? Like you're like, I fought with electronic tracks for 3 weeks and got it up to like a 6.5, right? And then it just comes together in an hour, and there's like a baby explosion of unicorn rainbows, like
right. But every song has its own, has its own path that it takes, right? Because for every song like that, You have something like When Robots Fuck from the first album.
Yeah.
It was one of the first ideas that we came together with. But, the ideas as we were trying to play them out, it was like this, almost like this, instead of being cool machinery, it was like this lumbering thing. Like, and it took massaging, and it was funny because so many other songs were done in the time that it took us to develop that one song, and I'm very happy with how it was in the end. But we tinkered with that song for a year, a year and a half. Where other songs like Brute, start to finish was done in less than 2 weeks. Car Crash in 5 days.
Nice.
Yeah. So it really, I guess that's the thing too, is to just kind of go with it as much as you possibly can. Wherever the song's kind of taking you, even if it is a dead end.
Sometimes, well, then you you got half a remix done. If it is
exactly right. There's a lesson in there somewhere, right? Like, at least I learned how to automate these kind of
yes,
things.
right. Like, this is crap, but I learned that if I do this trick, it sounds cool. So, see, there's a unintentional theme emerging on these Space Couch episodes, where I just sort of love a dude with a motor, because not only have you been going for a while, you got like thousands of things happening. So is it? We'll get into that in a second. I know I'm going to tease that a bit, because I want to. Before I do anything else, I want to circle back to the new OHM album. Where should people go for that?
Well, you can go to bandcamp.com.
Is that what you prefer, Bandcamp?
You can get Waves and Flax there. You can also order the CD from Artifact Records there. You can order from Artifact, of course, directly themselves. Right. But it's also available digitally and in hard copy from Amazon and all the major retailers, and available. It's going to be available on iTunes, so on and so forth.
And give us the name one more time.
It's self-titled. It's OHM Electronic.
OHM Electronic. Check it out. Dope as fuck. From what I've heard, I don't have it out. I don't have it because it's not out yet, but it's out Friday. Awesome.
Right.
Oh, here, Space Couch exclusive. Check it out. Check it out. You can see it. Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. Amazing artwork done by Simon Paul, and a lot of folks. He did our first album, but he's also done a lot of subcon stuff, and very pretty.
Oh, that's that's pretty. That looks cool, man. I want to be a little bit. Oh, what's up? Oh, that's Retro Gamer. I'm going to be a little bit self-indulgent, because if there was one band me and my other industrial loser buddies played till it fell apart in the car driving around, was Frontline Assembly, and probably, if I'm honest, a little bit more Noise Unit. And I know you have some connection there. Please, can you speak to a little bit about your work with Noise Unit and FLA, if that applies?
Sure. So, Chris and I met probably somewhere around, like, say, 1999, 2000-ish. Mm-hmm. I want to say he was working on Implode.
Okay, yeah. That would have been about 98, I think, for Implode.
Yeah. Or maybe it had come out just shortly thereafter.
Okay.
For 99 sounds about
99,
right.
Yeah.
So we'd hung out a fair bit, and Chris had seen me play a few times. I was one of the only guys locally who played live a lot. So it wasn't unusual to be at one of my shows because nobody else was doing shows. But we'd talked a few times, and and he was like, well, obviously you know what you're doing. We should hang out and jam. Mm-hmm. And eventually we did, and it was probably, but years later, it was probably 2004, 4-ish. But But I mean, ironically, I mean, we'd been hanging out, those 5 years. But I mean, music was kind of, honestly, just really secondary to our friendship. So we just kind of didn't go there. But yeah, so we sat down one evening over beers and fiddled out what ended up becoming Illicit Dreams.
I love that song. You did Illicit Dreams.
I love that song. So that was the first time that Chris and I really got to dig in and work together.
Oh, God.
And it was a blast because I like to improvise a lot, and I'm very much I like to just kind of go into things. I do a lot of first takes.
Yeah, nice.
I don't like doing second or third takes. And
well, you got to roll it out. You got like 8 things going on, man.
Well, it was great. So Chris just hit record and just looped the song over and over again for like an hour.
Mm-hmm.
An hour and a bit, and I just just dropping one take after another. Oh, okay, I'm gonna drop a bass line this time. Throw me a bass line sound. Okay, I'm gonna drop it. Okay.
That's awesome.
Cool pads, man. Just do it. Okay, all right. Just throw me a beer. But it was a lot of fun. That's always been my criteria, and one of the reasons why I did do LBM was because I, at the time that I started that, I didn't have any friends of mine that I had similar musical tastes with whom it was fun to work with. Except for maybe my friend Keith Gillard, who co-produced the first 2 LBM albums, right? Keith was great to work with, but he was interested in completely different music, so we were never going to collaborate on anything of that nature, sort of thing, right? So, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
And for me, that's my whole thing. Is it's like I will pick people that are willing to learn or being open over talented pricks.
Well, that's pretty dope. Just real quick. Go on.
Oh, sorry. Go on. I mean,
I was just gonna. When I was flirting with the young lady who is now my girlfriend, she asked I put together a playlist of like chill out kind of work industrial, and Illicit Dreams was the first track. I was like, all right, it's gotta start out on that. So that's my whole dumb story. What's that?
And that was actually the first Illicit Dreams was actually Jeremy Ankle's first writing credit on a release. Yeah. Jeremy did up the drums for that one. Did a fabulous job.
No kidding. Well, yeah, that was a shitty day, but what are you gonna do?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But speaking of Jeremy, that factors very heavily into the next chapter of that, which is after Noise Unit came out. There was Artificial Soldier was put together.
Yes.
That was something I'd talked to Chris about participating in, but I had my first child, so I was very much out of commission for a while. They were actually literally right about the time that they were gearing up to do Artificial Soldier, because Chris was like, I'd really like to bring you in on this. Mm-hmm. Because there's I think there's a fresh perspective that you could bring to this, because I'm a synth player first, a different level of creative musicianship, as opposed to producers that maybe work in the box. You can get different more random results, which is why I prefer to play stuff as opposed to sequencing. I don't like sequence.
You quite live.
Most of them is not sequenced. That's just played.
Yeah. So you are the master of segues, sir, because I wanted to get into some live stuff. You have Infest coming up. No, excuse me. Yes. Infest. Yes. Yep. I messed that up. That's cool.
Yeah.
The Gossicles did that one 12 years ago. I would be. I'm happy to see what's changed. That's in Bradford, yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Very cool, man.
Yeah. No,
Um,
really excited about doing that.
have you played Infest before?
Nope, never.
Okay. You've done England before, though, yeah.
No.
You've never played England.
No, it's really funny. I've Landscape Body Machine did get some rotation, over there, but I never actually went and played a show in Europe until Wave Gothic Treffen.
Okay.
In 17. We played it one evening as Ohm, and then the next evening I did a Landscape Body Machine set.
Awesome.
And that was the first and only European show I've ever done. Which is ironic because when I did do the album, I sent a lot of albums overseas, but I just
well,
never got over there.
That's cool, and I want to circle back to Wave Gothic in a second, but I want to give Infest its due. It's a couple days. Do you know which day you're playing?
Playing on the 25th.
Okay, so the 25th, you want to check out Ohm. At I believe it's still at University of Bradford, but that may have changed. Right. Awesome. Oh, super excited about that. You're drinking some wine with us in space, and when the Godsicles did it, we played first, and then just had the rest of the weekend to drink, and they give you a lot of booze there. Or at least they did in 2007.
Well, it is England, right? I mean,
dude, it was nuts. Like,
you have a different sense of these things, right?
I'll tell this. This is just how crazy it got. Like, and I don't think I've told this story on Space Couch, but ESA, kind of an unknown-ish ESA. Yeah, Jeremy. Jamie, I meant to say.
Jamie, sorry.
People knew who he was, but like he wasn't like the monster that he is now. But so he had a singer on for like one song, and that guy crushed. And like I'm hanging out with this dude backstage, and it's a really nice backstage. And like there's a spread, like a vegetable spread, and there's this bowl of barbecue sauce. And like I can't do an English accent, but I'll do it for the story. Excuse my fucking Mary Poppins this. And he's like, right, I'm gonna punch that sauce. And I'm like, what? Like I just didn't understand what he said. And he balls up his fist and plants it into this bowl of barbecue sauce. It goes everywhere because we're both like Walking Dead drunk. And he punches this bowl of barbecue sauce. It goes everywhere. Looks at me and goes, yeah, like he did some shit. And then like walks out of the room like triumphantly. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? And then Dope Stars Incorporated walked in, and they're like, the fuck is this American guy doing, throwing barbecue sauce all over the green room? But yeah, so that's what you have to look forward to at Infest. People punching bowls of barbecue sauce.
No, looking forward to that.
But I've never done Wave Gothic Treffen. That sounds awesome. For those of you just joining us or uninitiated, I did it once. This is 2001 or 2. This is so in the last eon.
Right.
And it is bonkers. Like, there's some wonderful, wonderful industrial festivals in the world, but I haven't seen one that takes over a city like Wave Gothic Treffen does.
And it's so well organized, too.
For as much as could go wrong.
About it, and the transportation.
Yes.
And, it was fucking brilliant.
And the embrace of the regular city people, like, I thought that was pretty great.
They have another festival in the city doubling up at the same time as Family Days, and it's really awesome.
Oh my gosh, tell me about that.
In the middle of the day, there's like this, there was like a Ferris wheel and all this shit in the middle of like.
Awesome.
and all these, people with kids, getting goths to pose with their children. That was probably the most charming part of it.
See,
Really.
the one year I went, it was, back in the before time, in the long, long ago. If you weren't dodging dinosaurs, they had Turnfest, which is the gymnastics festival. So every bus was either 12-year-old girls in pink tutus, or the German goths with the 3-foot mohawk, or like that spike. Like, I don't know if this is still cool, but like, I'd never seen this. It was like a cone head, like the SNL sketch spike of hair. But just awesome. What's it like to play that?
That was a blast. So the first show, the OHM show, was at a place called Stedbad, which is it used to be a giant bathhouse.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's very, and I mean, and this is the great thing about Leipzig is that I mean, it was behind the Iron Curtain,
Right. Yes.
Right. So there's this very, overarching kind of, old USSR feeling to certain parts of the city, and this most definitely was, representative of that. So that was pretty amazing. And then the second night, the Landscape Body Machine show was in a place called Moritzbastei, which was I believe it was a monastery at one point.
Yeah, it's cool. It's all bricky.
It's brick and it's underground.
Yeah.
Underground. And, that was just phenomenal.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Because it's like, this is in Leipzig, Germany, and there's sometimes 8 other acts playing around the city at the same time as you. So, like, if you can get people to show up, I imagine that must be pretty great. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, we felt pretty fortunate because we were, we played just before the Revolting Cocks.
Never heard of them. I'm kidding.
Yeah. But Skinny Puppy was playing the same night, right? So it was like this, you could watch the Revolting Cocks and try and run across the city to see if you could catch Puppy.
Right, right.
But, yeah. But yeah, it's scheduled very, very, very tightly like that.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. And I feel like I should make an apology on behalf of the band to the Revolting Cocks for stealing their whiskey. Sorry.
Hey, you just borrow it from the community, the industrial, the community.
Yeah, no, it wasn't really their fault though. That was all for you, Novak.
We'll have to get him on here.
Yeah.
Well, any other OHM Live gigs you want to plug, as long as we're talking OHM Live?
I don't have anything firm to announce yet. We're looking at doing a German tour.
Oh, very cool.
Before the end of the year, and
awesome.
And as far as August is concerned, we're looking at booking dates in Europe leading up to Infest.
Very cool. Oh,
so,
yeah.
Yeah. So
nice,
nothing to announce yet.
Is it a pain in the ass for a Canadian to play the States these days?
Oh, dude, it's so yeah, being from Vancouver, and Victoria vicariously, it's always kind of been a pain in the ass, right?
Okay.
The next closest, major city is, if you can call it that, no offense, Calgary, is Calgary. And that's a 12-hour drive through the Rockies, right?
Yeah.
Seattle's only 2 hours away. But the visa fees are really punishing.
Yeah,
and that's if they get approved in time,
right.
Which is a phenomenon. I think anybody who follows any band on the internet has been familiar with, seeing at least one or two of their favorite acts have their tours either canceled or delayed because of visa issues. I mean, I'll be honest with you, and I'm very, very, very open to playing. We're very open to playing shows in the States, but we don't have anything planned yet. Simply because there is there is that
Yeah.
spec, kind of hanging over things. And it bums me out too because at one point I was going and playing LBM shows in Seattle once every 3 to 6 months.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, but there's a certain level of along with the fees and stuff. There's a certain level of harassment that's happening to Canadians at the border as well.
For real.
That makes it just kind of unsavory to.
Wild. I hadn't heard that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been grilled on numerous occasions that I'm coming down to steal some gerbs.
Get out. Crazy.
And the last guy that got into this with me, because you know I'm proudly Canadian.
Right.
I appreciate my citizenship, and I just said to the guy, I said, I have no desire to live in your country.
Right. Right.
Feel as strongly about the way that you feel about the United States. Well, you know what? Imagine that. That's how I feel about my country, right? And honestly, if I really wanted to move down there, I probably could. But
Yeah.
this is my home. However, I play music, and that means that I would like to, I'd like to please be a guest in your country. It's it really being neighbors and having that level of scrutiny. It's kind of offensive.
Bruh. Dude. Yeah. I was talking to Aria once a few years ago. She had done a show in Chicago, and I asked her how much the visa was, and she told me, and my just jaw dropped. Like it's just
Yeah.
bonkers.
Yeah, it's outrageous. Well, you know what, and so it's nice if you can put together a big enough tour.
Yeah.
You can take that stuff down. But again, uh, there is always that wild card
Yeah.
that for a reason it might not be approved in
Like if
time.
you want to drive 2 hours to play, well, Seattle's got that amazing Mechanismus Festival. I don't know if you've seen the lineup for that, but it's insane.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be a major deal for you to cross that national line, because
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is too, though, is if we're invited to anything like be it that festival or
yeah,
Cold or whatever have you, we would simply look at trying to build a business
right,
case for other shows in the United States and try to
right,
absorb the fee. But again, though, it's complicated and it takes a really long. You have to plan these things at least 6 to 9 months out
yeah.
to make sure that you're gonna get it. Where I'm planning stuff in Europe right now without the same concerns, and you know,
Yeah, well,
it's disappointing. I hope that changes.
several of my fellow Americans do hit Infest, and so if you do, be sure to catch Ohm because you're not going to catch him here, or at least in the next 6 months. We
Not,
may
not that
see.
we know. Not that we know
Not that we know, not that we know, because they're lighting it up. Once again, you want to get Ohm Electronic, self-titled Ohm Electronic on Bandcamp, out on Artifacts. They've always been good to us. Big ups to Artifact. Um, so, uh, when you're not, Chris Tucker, Type Trauma is here. What's up, man? If you're not doing 18 music things and playing the two-handed Howard Jones synthesizer rack.
Yeah.
Have you Are you reading anything or watching anything on Netflix? See any movies we should know about?
Oh, I just finished watching Counterpart, which I believe in the States is on Stars.
Okay,
And that was incredible.
I don't know what's the 140 character Twitter synopsis.
I don't. I'm going to give you 280. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So it's basically it's during the Cold War era in Berlin.
Ooh.
There is a rift in space and time accidentally created inside of this building, which splits Earth into two parallel universes.
Awesome.
So it's following what happens when a group of insurgents comes from one side to the other, intent on terrorism.
Oh man!
And so it's got this neat sort of cold era, 80s cold era vibe. And
Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna
yeah,
have to check that out. That sounds.
yeah, it's excellent. And I guess I just watched Happy. I thought
Is
was
that
funny.
good? Okay.
Oh, dude, that's funny as shit. Yeah.
Because I read a lot of comics and they advertise that show a lot. I haven't seen it,
Yeah,
but
no, I would say no. I'd say that's well worth it.
awesome,
Absolutely.
awesome.
One
Okay,
of the guys from Law and Order in it, doing
yeah,
something much more worthwhile.
Stabler. It's in the clip now. Awesome, thank you for
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um,
Man,
just
they
because
found you, Brian.
can you hear that? Oh, Space Police! God damn it! That was international waters, and you know it, Space Police.
It was only a nebula.
Look, I know we're breaking the laws of physics, but I cleared it. I cleared it with the Space Police. That's probably the space show next door. They're not very good though. We're a much better show. um, Victoria, Victoria, my body's going through a lot of changes. It seems to be pretty dope with Club Ovator, Sex, Death, Religion, landscape, and the Ohm stuff going on. We talked a little bit before the show about kind of what it was like to be an industrial kid and be from Vancouver, where now you're growing up in ground zero skinny puppy country.
Yeah.
Is Victoria headed in that direction, or is it what's going on right now? Like,
I would, that's the funny thing about the perception of scenes,
yes,
right? And I think really Victoria is more about civilized human beings and friends working together, to create, harmonious things. It's interesting. Victoria has a really vibrant music scene, but it's even underground within itself.
Explain that.
And it probably looks very much like the mythological Vancouver industrial scene. It's much more romantic from a distance. But the reality is, like the place where I used to go and have coffee, downtown, and sit like two booths away from the skinny puppy guys when I was like 12 or 13, that doesn't exist anymore. So it's there is a scene, but I would say it suffers the same level of hardships as everybody else.
Fair enough. I want to circle back to something because you just said something awesome. Did you know them growing up or something? The skinny puppy guys?
I've met everybody at some point or another.
Okay.
I mean, because again, Vancouver is really, really small. I that would have been July 1987. On my way to see The Cure.
Never heard of them.
A pair of sunglasses from whom I found out later would have been Bill Lieb at a store called The Web.
So wait, I laughed over you found a pair of sunglasses, or you
like these ones or these ones? He's like, I'll go with those ones.
That's a very strong Bill Lieb.
So at many points, I met, Reese at a couple of different parties, and of course, as I'd mentioned, I'd mentioned Chris. We had met at at parties and clubs and stuff like that, and so it was really kind of sort of that sort of thing,
Okay, cool.
I knew Phil Western. Originally from bumping into audio a place called Odyssey Imports. That was my favorite record shops.
Wow.
And yeah, so I mean, I mean, these are all, you know what I mean? These are all people in the neighborhood kind of thing. And it's because, like, you know, I've never really viewed Skinny Puppy and Frontline Assembly as musical influences of mine in the respect of these are the bands that I want to sound like. But it was more like, oh, you know, these guys do stuff and they're influenced by artists that I really like. And oh, cool, you know, they're from here and they can do it. And hey, maybe I can do it too, kind of thing, right?
Awesome.
I mean, the whole reason why I wanted to get involved with Frontline Assembly in the mid thousands, and Chris wanted to bring me in, was because, you know, here I was going, I have something more to say about you know what we're doing here. You know, this sound. I want to let's try and push this kind of thing. You know,
interesting.
And, but you know, but that ended up being a much better thing to do autonomously as own, as opposed to in context of Frontline Assembly.
So, well, you talked about real quick. So you do have some Frontline Assembly credits, or am I fucking that up?
Well, so Craig has a baby.
Yeah.
in early 2006, and so I didn't get involved in writing with Chris in IED as we'd originally sort of planned, and so he and Jeremy ended up you know, splitting the writing. But when the tour came up, the American tour, Reese had other commitments, and so I knew, and this is kind of funny. So I knew Reese by and large from the Sunshine Coast near Roberts Creek, where he lived for some time, and also his dad.
Wow. Okay.
He was a friend of mine. But anyways, well, and again, right? This is where you know it's like you know Vancouver and the environs become you know sort of this small town. You know, like, oh, you're Reese Fulber's dad. Oh, hi. You know,
that's so awesome.
I know your son, right? You know, sort of small petri dish kind of thing.
Right.
But anyways, Reese couldn't do the American tour.
Yeah.
So Chris said, well, hey, you know, I know somebody that can step in, and Reese said, yeah, I think this guy could definitely step in.
Awesome.
So I showed up on the last day of rehearsals before leaving for Seattle, and I was the live keyboard player for that ill-fated tour of the United States. Yeah.
Awesome.
That was the beginning of my involvement. I guess the next thing would have been Jeremy had invited me to come over for a weekend. He said, you know, I've got this really great dance track that I've started, and he's like, and I'm not really sure what I want to do with it. And he's like, I was wondering if you could come over and you know, throw down some shit and help me give it some shape. And so that was in, I guess, 2009, 2010, and that would have been Shifting Through the Lens.
Nice, man.
Yeah,
fucking cool.
And I think that's and I think that's it. Yeah, I played one more show with them that Christmas just for shits and giggles in Vancouver, but I think Chris left very shortly thereafter. Oh no, actually no. I think he had already just recently departed. So
okay,
yeah.
Well, thank you. That had to have been, at least for the live show part, because like Frontline has some pretty intense fans. I imagine that you had some good audience response.
Yeah. Well, that was a funny show actually. I have a Jeremy Inkle story.
Awesome.
From that show that I have to tell. So you know, as you know, Frontline has these big, cantankerous, fucking ridiculous keyboard stands, right?
Okay.
Big. I don't know if you've ever seen them play.
Yeah, hell yeah. But like, yeah, you could move into them. Like, right? They're durable goods,
right? Which, when I was playing with them, let me tell you, for anybody that's seen me play, you know, in the Pacific Northwest, you know, I climb all over my gear.
Yes.
I've even snapped an X-frame in half on stage from jumping on it. So I mean, I love their stands. Playing on those things, I was like, great. I could actually stand on top of the stand and I would die. Anyways, so I'm getting up to my usual shenanigans, right up at the, and the keyboard stand is right up at the edge of the stage, and I climb up and I'm starting to get this bounce going on, and all of a sudden, the top tier of the stand comes off. And thankfully the front row of the audience was being really attentive and they caught it.
Oh God.
With my synth still on it, with me still playing it.
Oh no!
These people, and then they push me while I'm still playing my parts back up on top and put it in. So anyway, so the long story short is that Jeremy had lost most of the lug nuts for the keyboard stand over successive tours and shows.
Oh no!
So he had just not put any in my stand. So he slotted the metal in, but it wasn't secured at all.
Oh no!
Oh my God!
Oh, good stuff.
I love you, boy.
Well, Jeremy, much like those lug nuts, will be missed. We have to wrap it up in just a second, but I do want to circle back, not only functionally, but I am personally excited about Friday's OHM Electronic release.
Yes.
What might we expect from this emotionally, if you like, is there any influence, musical or otherwise, that you would be able to speak to on this?
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, with everything that I like to write, I mean, I feel compelled to express myself, both sociopolitically, and emotionally at the same time. And so, everything that I write, whether it's LBM or lyrics in OHM or synths and songs in OHM, there's always those two hemispheres. There's what's kind of going on in my own personal life, and then I find a way of bringing in something that sort of reflects what's going on out here, kind of thing. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, it's pretty fucking angry.
Yeah.
Because we're all pretty fucking angry.
Okay.
Right. It's funny that I was in an interview question. I was asked something about Uppercut. Talking about it in context of the Trump presidency, and I wrote the lyrics in 2014.
Right.
So it's Trump is an embodiment of this festering parasitic religious right movement that is surging in the United States since the 60s. Trying to assert its dominance. In America, and so a lot of the songs, I mean, they really they revolve around those themes of exploitation of the media for those purposes, and how misguided these things become in the hands of billionaires.
Right.
who are steering our news discourse.
Okay. Awesome. So we got
there's a lot of stuff to it, but there's also again a lot of on the personal side, a lot of themes of getting to the point of breaking, and rising like the phoenix.
Damn. So we got some range and we got some power. That sounds amazing. Let's bring it on home. Craig, thank you for spending a weeknight with me here in space. I know you worked very hard to build the satellite dish to beam the signal out here into the Orion Nebula. I do appreciate it.
We miss you, Brian. It's been a couple years.
It's been a little bit. OHM Electronic. What's that?
You should come up soon.
Fuck yeah, dude. I would love to. I would love to.
Sukasa.
Pardon?
Mikasa Sukasa.
Awesome. Thank you for letting me crash. at your place that one time. Ohm Electronic is out Friday. No Space Couch this Sunday. Gossicles play Roanoke Friday night with the 40 Boys. Tony Lekmansky of Bella Morte has a punk rock side project. That's going to be at MistyCon. All right. Here we go. Space Couch out. Awesome. I love it. End credits are rolling now. We can talk over them because, like, it's space and there's no rules. International waters, you can't get me, Space Police. There's the sample right there. And Space